Hi, I'm Tim Lambert, Editor-in-Chief of the Pennsylvania Capital Star. In recent months, the U.S. Department of Homeland Security spent more than $1 billion buying nearly a dozen warehouses in several states. The plan is to convert them into immigrant detention centers as part of the Trump administration's mass deportation initiative. 2 are in Pennsylvania: Tremont Township in Schuylkill County and Upper Bern Township in Berks County. The 7,500-person facility proposed for a former Big Lots warehouse in Tremont would be among the largest detention centers in the nation. As it stands, infrastructure in the rural area cannot support an operation of that scale, and that reality has essentially opened the door for the state government to stall the project. The Capital Star's Emily Previti spent time reporting in the coal region to find out how the plan is landing. What she found is a community in limbo, grappling with being thrust into the national immigration debate and once again with the possibility of exploitation by outsiders.
Tremont Township has one traffic light. It's at the intersection of Route 209 and Roush Creek Road, and you can see the warehouse from there. There's also, right in between the two, almost at the corner, a daycare center with a parking lot and playground. I talked to the owner, Joyce Wetzel, on site there one afternoon while it was raining.
I hear it hanging off the roof.
Joyce took me into the kitchen so we could talk while the kids were napping, and she's wearing slippers herself, as you might hear. She told me she got into this business 43 years ago when she couldn't find daycare for her own kids, and so she started one out of her house. Over the years, the business grew, and by the time her oldest was leaving high school, she was in the position to build her own place and found a location one town over.
I purchased the land from Big Lots, the corner front property, right off 81, close to Tremont, close to Tower City, close to Pine Grove, going up north, Minersville.
Joyce says she hasn't noticed many changes since Big Lots closed at the end of 2024, other than the traffic dropping off. Then, earlier this year, she got a phone call.
Larry Bender, he's the supervisor of Tremont Township, and he told me that the federal government, the ICE agents, whatever, bought Big Lots.
At first, it seemed like good news to her, because nothing had been happening with the property. The Big Lots sign is still up, but the warehouse has been empty since 2024, and technically the company hasn't actually been the owner since a few years before that. Big Lots had been in a leaseback agreement that entailed selling the property for $129 million and then paying rent to the new owner. After the warehouse closed, it was about a year before the real estate investment firm Blue Owl sold it for $119 million to the federal government. It was one of multiple similar warehouse transactions across the country around the same time for the same reason: to convert them into detention facilities for immigrants facing deportation. The deals have been criticized as secretive.
I said, oh, that's great. I'm like, oh. And he was more complaining about not having the revenue for the township. They have to cover that cost.
The federal government buying the property in Tremont takes nearly $1 million of tax revenue from local schools and governments every year. To try to address that, the Schuylkill County commissioners say they're pursuing a payments in lieu of taxes, often called a pilot or PILT. They say they've been on conference calls with federal officials who floated doing one for at least 3 years. Immigration and Customs Enforcement and the Department of Homeland Security haven't responded to my questions about that time limit and where things stand with negotiating the agreement, among others. These arrangements are not unusual. Taxing districts all over the country have them with exempt entities like universities, hospitals, nonprofits, and other, often larger, government units. In Pennsylvania alone, 40-something counties received between $200 and nearly $400,000 just last year from PILTs with the feds. Having the federal government on the other end of one of these deals, it brings with it the uncertainty of budget negotiations and potential delays if lawmakers can't come to an agreement. As for Joyce's federal representatives, they're Senator Dave McCormick and Congressman Dan Muser.
I left messages, voicemails, I sent emails out, and no response. I did say I am the daycare center. That is right next to the Big Lots distribution center. So I've been calling nonstop, like 3 times, 4 times a week.
Joyce hasn't heard back from either of them. Not only is she their constituent, she has a business next to the warehouse. And really, it's more like the business. There's not much else around. Most properties in that vicinity are either vacant, undeveloped, or warehouses.
Tremont Township. It is very small. Nothing but woods.
Right after Joyce and I talked, on that same afternoon, not too long after I left, County Commissioner Larry Pedora stopped to see her. The first contact they'd had since the detention center became public weeks before. I asked him about their conversation a couple days later at a town hall organized specifically about this issue.
We drove up with Congressman Muser to see the facility, and I said, well, where's this daycare? I want to find it. And then we went there to see her. It was the first time I had an opportunity to get up that way because our schedules are pretty full. Yeah, so we stopped in and talked to her, got her concerns, and I brought them to DHS. So we're going to keep doing what we're doing. That's all we can do.
Muser didn't join the commissioners at the town hall or for the conversation with Joyce. Like her, Muser is among the 58% of voters in Schuylkill County who's registered as a Republican, as is Pedora. Muser also is running again, after 4 terms in Pennsylvania's 9th district. He hasn't faced a primary challenger since his first win in 2018, and he's won by increasing margins with every election since then. Last time, he got more than 70% of votes. It's also worth noting that his district includes both forthcoming ICE facilities in Pennsylvania, the one in Tremont and in Upper Burn. Joyce's lack of access to her federal elected representatives and information from them is striking, given her situation and the fact that it's been months since the warehouse purchases went public. These issues figure prominently among concerns of other people living and working nearby who I've interviewed and listened to at public meetings. So does the loss of tax revenue. And they share many other concerns when it comes to how the detention center will actually operate.
I didn't know exactly how the process worked, but I'm finding things out. They get processed in one building, then shipped to another building someplace else. And I'm concerned, like, okay, how many... 7,500 people, that's a lot of people to put in a big building. How are they going to sleep? How are they going to eat? Are they going to be families? Are they going to be criminals? Are they going to... What do I do with those protesters? And I have children out here, how do I...
While we were talking, I told Joyce what I knew at that point. The goal is, or at least it was, to open the detention center in November. It would house adult women for an average of less than 60 days after initial processing at a smaller facility, like the one planned about 20 miles away in Upper Burn. These details came first from Pedora, who's chairman of the commissioner's board. The other two, they'll chime in, but he's really taken the lead addressing this at their weekly public meetings in response to constituents and sharing updates about what they've heard during conference calls with officials or their representatives, like Muser, McCormick, Senator John Fetterman, and Governor Josh Shapiro, and from DHS, ICE, and the State Department of Environmental Protection. I've sent lists of questions to ICE and DHS. An unnamed DHS spokesperson replied twice by email saying the same thing, that these plans are under review, as with any transition, referring to Secretary Markwayne Mullin taking over for Kristi Noem. The emails also referred to Mullin's testimony during his confirmation hearing about working with communities on this. Courtesy of C-SPAN, here he is responding to New Hampshire Senator Maggie Hassan, a Democrat.
Will you commit to me that ICE will not open any new facilities in New Hampshire or elsewhere in the country without the support of the local community?
Ma'am, I will work with the local community and I'll work with you in your office. I I won't be able to speak to that until I understand the risk and the reason behind delivering the mission that's set in front of us. We got to protect the homeland, and we're going to do that. But obviously, we want to work with community leaders. We want to be good partners.
New Hampshire's elected leaders successfully prevented the federal government from buying a warehouse there for conversion to an ICE facility. Timing was key. The sale hadn't actually happened yet, and DHS was about to pump the brakes on additional acquisitions.
Senator Fetterman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Hello, Senator Mullen. Thank you for coming in today.
More than a month before that, Fetterman had sent a letter to Nome outlining and validating concerns raised by some of his Schuylkill County constituents who'd written to him. Fetterman also makes his opposition to the projects clear in that document, and he asks Nome for a briefing, impact assessments, and federal funding to counteract them, and public engagement with the host communities. During Mullen's hearing, he didn't bring that up.
And now, if you care about immigration, as I deeply do, you can't possibly provide the American dream for people when the size of Pittsburgh showing up at our border once a month.
Fetterman, whose wife was undocumented when they met, didn't pose any questions to Mullen.
You and I have had conversations on this, and that's your commitment to focus on those things.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
His office told me later that Fetterman didn't raise the issue at that time because others had already addressed it. Fetterman also sent Mullen a letter 6 weeks after that hearing, and 1 week after I reached out on this. It's basically the same as the one to Nome, minus the briefing request. Fetterman's letter to Mullen also asks for pre-purchase documents. In real estate, those would include things like inspection reports and title searches. In the meantime, Joyce and others in Tremont are in limbo.
Yeah, so it's like a lot of unanswered questions. And for me, being here 25 years, if I would go and sell this, who would buy it?
There's also infrastructure to worry about, from roads to first responders. If this place is housing 7,500 people and supposed to have another 2,000 minimum working there, then it would more than double the sewage system service population, which is 4,000 people currently. The water supply in that area also has been so limited that a couple years ago, it ran out during a fire in the borough of Tremont, where Joyce has lived for her entire life. Her daycare center also is across Roush Creek Road from a wastewater treatment site.
The water company's right there. They've been trucking water in tanker loads just to accommodate, to keep the amount that they need.
Pat Caulfield is executive director of the Schuylkill County Municipal Authority, which runs the treatment site. He has been with the authority for almost 3 decades.
The quality of the groundwater at the top, at that area, due to the significant mining, is high iron and manganese. It was so bad that we actually were required to build a filtration plant. So it was a very expensive project, using groundwater wells plus a treatment plant and a storage tank.
Then in 1998, during a drought warning throughout the state, the wells were depleted.
And we had to emergency haul water in from another source to keep our tank full during that drought. We initiated a study. We sited a third well closer down toward that Tierney Reservoir. We've been able to sustain. We've actually expanded that system and added another community supply on it.
Caulfield says the area's proximity to Interstate 81 also has attracted big box companies, but that development is limited to warehouses, which don't use much water.
Summer 2024, we were in a drought situation, and on September 16, 2024, there was a massive fire in the borough of Tremont. A few buildings, almost a whole block, burned down. It took 600,000 gallons of water out of our 1 million gallon tank, and we struggled on replenishing that water supply. So we then initiated emergency hauling, and that continued through the winter because we didn't get any rain or didn't get any additional groundwater recharge.
At that point, Caulfield and his colleagues started the process of re-permitting the Tierney Reservoir. This was 2 years ago, and they emphasized that their work on this began long before anything came up about a detention center in the area. Also, the reservoir coming online means at most another 70,000 gallons of water per day, and that's a fraction of the 900,000 gallons the facility would need at minimum once operational, according to the State Department of Environmental Protection.
As far as what would be needed for this proposed facility, we cannot comment because no one has asked us.
Caulfield says he hasn't heard from ICE or DHS.
Yeah, our involvement is very simple, very basic, and unfortunately at this time, we have nothing. We have not had a reach out. We've not had a request to rehook up what's already there. We've not had a request to have additional capacity. We have zero in front of us right now.
This is weeks after the state issued orders that basically prohibit local officials in both communities from facilitating water and wastewater use at the properties in lieu of specific plans from ICE. ICE has appealed those orders. The agency says it wants to use the property's water and sewage systems for now at a low level, as already approved for their function as warehouses. Just enough so that bathrooms and water fountains work for security personnel and for people on site to finish the plans being requested. ICE claimed previously to have already completed these plans on conference calls with Schuylkill officials, including Caulfield.
I can comment on what I heard at that meeting.
Sure.
DHS has indicated that they have a full team currently doing, I guess, what you would call due diligence. And not only for water and wastewater, but for all the other utilities, internet, power, heating, fuel, but also all the other items that were discussed and brought up as concerns by the commissioners on behalf of the community, which is, overloading emergency services, the financial implication of a government entity that's tax-free. I can't really speak to that, but from the water and sewer portion of it, they just indicated that they are continuing to work on solutions for what they will need. And I was on the call, and no one asked me any questions.
Some local governments in this area have passed resolutions stating their oppositions to the detention center. It gets the municipal leadership's position on the record, makes it official. It doesn't really change anything in practical terms. One governing body that's done this is Tremont Borough Council in Joyce Wetzel's hometown. I was there the night council passed the resolution and didn't see her, so I brought a hard copy with me when we met.
It did go. Oh.
Take a minute and look over that if you want. Sorry it's so rumbled.
Oh.
I tried to press it before giving it to you in a notebook.
So it was adopted then?
Yeah.
I didn't know this, so.
Yeah, no, I don't think anyone did it.
Yeah.
So, What are your thoughts after reading that?
That's fine with me, Then my mind would go to ease too. If the ICE facility did not happen there.
And if it did?
Help the town with their water and their sewer treatment, and also buy my building so I don't need to worry about it, and maybe make this a security building or something, because there's nothing else around. That would be an easy solution for me and probably for them, because then they wouldn't have to worry about, there's little kids up there and that kind of stuff. Because every day something could happen. You have to be right on top of everything, because the children's safety is number one. After that thing's up running, my nerves will be shot.
Joyce is at full capacity right now, with 43 children as young as 6 months old up to the age of 12. About a quarter of client families have already told her.
They will pull their children. So I'm really worried.
You've been listening to Iced Out, a limited series from Folo PA and the Pennsylvania Capital Star. In the next episode, we'll delve into the crisis that Schuylkill County would face as a rural area if forced to absorb what would be one of the largest detention centers in the country. You'll also hear from a state lawmaker who sees some potential benefits for her district.
We've been a neglected community for 30 plus years. It couldn't get much worse. You know, would I rather it be a nice hospital going up in the area or something less controversial? Of course, but as it is, on a conference call we had with Department of Homeland Security, they told us that they're looking at between 2,000 and 2,500 jobs. They're willing to spend millions on infrastructure.
You can find the full series wherever you get your podcasts. And if you like what you hear, please share it with a friend. You can also subscribe to the Capital Star's newsletter for a heads up about new installments of this series and other stories about how people are affected by decisions in Harrisburg and Washington, D.C. It's pencapital-star.com, and we've included a link in the show notes. Tim Lambert is the Capital Star's editor-in-chief and executive producer of this series. Special thanks to WITF for use of their studios, and to State's Newsroom national editor Sarah Baranowski and national podcast producer Mallory Chang. I'm Emily Previti. Thanks for listening.